Hello, everybody, and welcome to the io.js TC meeting for the 1st of April 2015. We have a bunch of people here, including Jeremiah, who's the first time it is on one of these meetings. Welcome, Jeremiah. And we have a bunch of things to get through today. So first of all, let's do a mini stand-up. Dominic, can you mute your microphone just while we're doing this, because you've got some background noise coming in. Thank you. So let's start with Ben. Do you want to start a stand-up?
Yep. I'm working on rewriting the timers module, and apart from that, I haven't been all that busy. I think. No, the timers module is the important one. Bert.
I've been pretty lazy myself. I don't know if this already came up in the last stand-up, but one of the things I worked on is trying to figure out how to be able to rename Node or io.js.exe, and we found a solution which more or less works. And I'm waiting for the next release so people can actually start using it. And I imagine that it's somewhere in the future we'll have to take more control over the JavaScript API. Other than that, there has been some discussion going on in the building a charter and whatnot, governance documents for the Node Foundation. I have moved again. This will be a recurring theme. No, this was the last time for now. And that's it for me. Next person would be Chris.
Sorry, Bert, did those changes for the Node.exe stuff not make it out into 1.6.3? Or is it new stuff?
No, actually, no, they are in there. Yes, sorry. I probably need to update my own io.js version now.
Cool.
So over the last week, I've been working on building a UTF-8 consumer that can validate and also skip invalid glyphs, and sort of dipping into C++ template madness, and also working on a tool to illustrate exception edges that are drawn from control flow graphs so that we don't accidentally introduce things as patch when they should be major, hoping to turn that into a GitHub bot of some sort. Just more control flow graph tools, basically. Dominic?
Nothing terribly io.js related for me last week.
Guess it's my turn now. Well, I was looking on different issues and trying to fix them and working on PRs, and I actually kept it secret for quite a while, but now I can open up my cards. So I have basically rewritten all the core in Go and going to push it to master today so that we will use it for now. I hope you're okay with this, guys.
That's awesome news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw that Ryan was working on something similar, but he started with
Yeah, I decided that. I decided that it's time to move from C++ and JavaScript to just Go, so that everything will be in Go, and we already rename the project. Name it io.go or go.io. I don't know. Yeah, something like this. So
really
Jeremiah?
nice. I like go.io, so go.io we can say. That's good.
Okay, yeah. Jeremiah?
I've been managing issues and reviewing PRs, basically the usual, and also investigating timers, bugs, and stuff. I think it's Michael next.
There we go. God, it took way too long to unmute. Yeah, I've been working on the io.js charter stuff. Basically, like, I had some calls to the Linux Foundation before they submitted the initial one, and now just going through it and rewriting a lot of stuff to put it more in with what we're doing. I have like a lot of work up, but it's about to get rewritten again because James Snell from IBM had some really good feedback. But it really changes the structure of how we were thinking about some of the alternative projects and working groups and stuff. So I'm in the middle of writing all that up. Who's next? I don't know. It's Trevor. Trevor's the only person left.
So look, I'm looking into why this is related to the timer thing indirectly. The running UV loop alive on the event loop after calling the before exit callback. If you unref a timer if you create a timer and unref it in the before exit, UV loop alive still returns true, which is weird and problematic. It shouldn't be returning true. So I'm trying to figure out why libuv is doing that if we're not properly unreffing something internally or whatnot. Also published some super preliminary docs for the low-level API for the Node working group, the Node API compliance working group. That again, it's all just super preliminary stuff. And then other than that, just basic issue triage and whatnot.
Did the API compliance working group start already?
No, I'm just writing up the preliminary doc to have a starting point.
Okay, cool.
And that's for the advisory board, isn't it?
Well, I guess the working group underneath the advisory board.
Yeah. Just to be clear, it's not an io.js working group.
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, what's going to end up happening is that all of these working groups will probably get fed into the foundation at some point. I mean, like, the advisory board will eventually get dissolved, and so, like, working groups like this will end up under the new project, just like our working groups are.
If reconciliation happens.
Right. But we're writing it in such a way that we can do that, and that's currently the goal.
Yeah. I also think that, at least that's my understanding, the advisory board API compliance working group is basically just gathering requirements. There's no effort to at this point standardize a low-level API, although that's a logical next step, of course. So just for your information.
Okay, I'm next. So I pushed out 1.6.3 this week. It was kind of painful because, well, it was in the middle of GitHub being DDoSed, so that was difficult. But also CI, it's just some of these errors and timeouts are really frustrating, particularly the Windows timeouts that we just can't figure out. And being able to pull apart what errors are persistent and what are new, I found particularly frustrating this time for some reason. I'm not sure if that's me or if it's just not getting, if it's getting worse or something. But yeah, so that was the 163 was my main exercise this week for io.js. So let's move on into review of last meeting. So that was 2 weeks ago. We added a Docker working group. Anyone feel free to butt in here if you've got anything to add or comment on. That we discussed revert stream base, and that was about policy for merging and how to deal with major changes. Then we talked about nominating Jeremiah to the TC. That ended with us inviting Jeremiah to come as to the TC as an observer status to start off with. We talked about passing arguments to process next tick, which I believe has moved on since then. Trevor, do you want to give us an update on that issue, the next tick thing?
With the variable arg next tick?
Yeah.
It's ready to go. I mean, it just got marked as minor version, and nothing else since.
Yeah, I think that at the meeting, the status was that we were talking about the API with .z-args, and now we've moved on to variable args because performance has been solved apparently.
Yeah, V8 has magically done something since the last time I tested it, which was not that long ago. But passing variable arguments to next tick is fast enough to make it a viable solution. And that API makes everybody much happier, so I'm just going with it.
Great. Okay, so on to the agenda items. reconciliation update. This is a new item that was just put in. There's no issue for it, except this is just an update from Michael and Bert, who have been involved in the process with Joyent and the advisory board. So, Michael, do you want to kick that off? And
before we get into that, so the Docker PR is still kind of in limbo, and I can't find notes from the last TC meeting. So it's kind of just stayed in an unmerged state for its actual governance.
That's my
I
fault.
think we ratified
I
it,
knew
didn't
there was
we?
something. We did ratify it. It was so that they need to merge and get going with that. But sorry, that's my fault. I knew there was something last night. I hadn't done minutes from last meeting are on my computer to be done. So yeah, Docker working group. They can be encouraged to just take off and do their own stuff. Michael.
Oh, sorry, didn't realize that it was my turn. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to something really, really good. The Linux Foundation has put together an early draft for governance. A lot of it is based on the io.js governance model. It's a little different in that there's sort of a document that is the TSC governance, which we would call TC governance. And that gets approved by the board, which means that changes to it have to get approved by the board. So there's this weird dance that we need to do where we need to get as many assurances as we can into that document, but not put so much stuff in it that we can't change it or iterate on it. Like anything that is like development process related or even TC kind of meeting process related, we want to put in a different document that the TSC can iterate on at will without going through the board. So it's quite a bit different, like in structure and in what it has, than our governance document, but that's mainly because our governance document covers both sort of process and governance. So we need sort of like help and eyeballs to sort of like look through that. And I'm preparing a blog post right now to give people kind of a rundown of what that document is and how to contribute to it. So that's one of the documents. Another one is this thing called the project lifecycle, which is basically how the Linux Foundation traditionally kind of puts in projects other than the main project into a foundation. And it's very far away from what working groups are. But we thought that it was better to just post that and then work from there to something that can actually accept io.js working groups. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah, and the direction that we're kind of going in is that the foundation would basically hold possibly like multiple top-level projects. So one of those top-level projects would be like Node.js, and it would have a TSC, and it would also have its own working groups. And so the working groups basically get chartered by the TSC, and the TSC/project is chartered by the board. But it could also take in other projects, right? So like if something like Express or Happy or a project that was like a really big and wanted like institutional backing, wanted to join the foundation, they could spin up their own working groups. They wouldn't be subordinate to like the Node Core TSC. They'd be sort of entirely separate from it. But one of the things that is also different from the way that we've been doing it is that working groups that are under the core project would eventually sort of get a seat on the TSC if they kind of accelerated enough. So we need to rethink kind of how we're structuring a lot of the working groups and how we think of top-level projects as we work through this merger and as we work on this document to figure out how to place them. That was a handful, but like, yeah, that's basically where it is.
Where can people go to discuss this? Do you want to just mention what people can do to engage?
Yeah. So if you want to make changes to the TSC charter, you can send pull requests to it's the Joyent/advisory board repo, and there's a document in there for the charter, so that's how you can propose changes to it. If you just want to comment on it, pull request number 30 in that repo is the original pull request that added it. And then my pull request is number 33, which is all about getting the working groups in line with the project lifecycle document that they have there.
So I'd like to add some parts to that. Like I know that there's open questions about like what, not open questions, but there's questions about what is the point for io.js, like why would we do this? And And so there's two answers to that. Like first of all, it's clearly the name and the confusion. So I think that people that are really involved, are really close to what's going on in the Node community, they know sort of that io.js is more advanced and it works a little bit better. The development is faster, etc. But there's like a large majority, and I actually try to check this every now and then, that maybe has ever heard of io.js, if even, but they would certainly never use it at this point. They will just go for the thing that's well known, which is Node. So being able to reconcile the name is a good thing. The other thing is, of course, budget, because as it looks now, there's I think 4 or 5 corporate sponsors. They're each putting in like $250,000, and so that means that if we need something practical, we might, for example, have a travel fund. That's a very obvious thing. So if Fedora wants to come to NodeConf, he doesn't have to or do jump some strange hoops to get budget for it. Or if we wanted to hire someone to really make the docs much better and don't just and not just change one paragraph at a time, but really have an bigger overview approach to it, we could maybe hire someone. And it would be up to us to basically make those proposals to the board. The board would approve the budget, basically, and that gives us more possibilities to do things that our individual companies don't want to sponsor or cannot. So that's basically what it brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that a little bit. Like, it's not like we benefit from having two projects and from not reconciling the names together. Like, we definitely don't benefit from it. It would be better if it wasn't like that, right? I think that we can all agree with that. And we are starting to hit some of the limits in what we can do without an institutional backing. I mean, we've gone incredibly far. Like, we have a bunch of build infrastructure, a lot of full-time people that are just donated by random sponsors. We've got, like almost 300 members of the org now and like 50 working groups. Like, we've done a lot, but we're starting to max out on what we can do without any money at all or any institutional backing. And at some point, if we were to continue, we would need a foundation. And it would be very hard to start a foundation on our own without Node.js if the projects were still split. So we really benefit, and we kind of jump ahead of where we could be if we reconcile the projects and get into the foundation. That said, though, we know why we've been successful and what's been working, and we can't move into a structure where we get rid of the things that are working and making the project successful, right?
Exactly. Is there anything more to discuss on this topic?
I feel like maybe we need an issue on io.js to discuss purely this topic.
I have a quick question. I scanned the pull request, and it seemed to me that the board has more influence than I initially thought it would have on the technical direction. Is that a justified fear of me?
I don't think so. So, okay, so I talked about 2 of the documents. There's a third one. The third one is called the, what is it? It's like the foundation policy or something. Basically, that's what the board is establishing, that the TSC has, full authority over this stuff. And it offers it just a bit of direction. Like, you need to stay open. You need to don't fuck it up or whatever. It's just a bunch of bullet points and things that we already understand culturally, but they're just sort of saying, like, that document, the point of that document is to say that the board is not going to make technical decisions. The TSC is, and here is the document where we're sort of saying, this is what you're doing and this is your scope. Right?
Just real quick, a small counterpoint is, I know with Node, one of the issues with upgrading V8 is that IBM has their own port for their own architectures, and it's difficult for them to continually upgrade V8 to work with their architectures. And I could see that something like that being a problem, where a board member or whatever comes in and says, if you release this, we are flat broken, even though it's not supported by V8 or anything. Like, I see that type of thing as being a potential issue.
So that issue specifically with IBM, I think that's becoming a non-issue. Like they care. The people that are using IBM ports of things aren't going to run the newest version of Node. Like for the most part, they're going to be on some kind of LTS strategy. And so what IBM cares about more than anything is an LTS strategy, so that as they're catching up for their port work, they know that there's actually a strategy for supporting and putting out patch releases of older versions. So you'll probably see them get really involved in the LTS working group. After reconciliation, and two is that their ports actually are catching up. So if you look at like V8 trunk right now, it like their master has PPC support in it.
I'd like to add to that two things. Like I've spoken to James Snell about this specific issue, and a couple of others, but this specific issue too. And we both agreed that whatever happens, there should be a fast-moving branch in Node. So they prefer to also have an LTS, which is a little bit easier for them to keep up to date with. But that doesn't mean that we, what io.js 1.3 or what is it is nowadays, that wouldn't exist. Like that is not the case. The LTS would basically be additional. The other thing is the board, like eventually, like what IBM could do on the board is say, well, we, in a worst case scenario, they could say we stop sponsoring this foundation if you don't do what we want. Like that is a theoretical possibility.
Maybe Corporation X could make such a threat.
Yes. Now, IBM most likely wouldn't do that because as soon as they do that, like they've used up all their ammunition. Like that's also where their influence ends, basically. So that's very unlikely. And the other thing that we have to consider is, like, if this is a problem for them, and that is a valid concern. Like we, as io.js, we're not, we don't make io.js for everyone except IBM. We also make it for IBM, and like, of course, there are like limits to what we can do. But I would say if our fast pace in upgrading V8 is a big problem for a large user, we would want to support them, like even if they are not a sponsor of the foundation.
Also, you have to keep in mind that they're not the only company there, and they're not the only company that is paying that amount of money. And like part of the reason why we want to have more than one of these companies rather than the one company that we had previously is that they have to say this kind of thing to each other, right? Like IBM actually probably wouldn't say this to us, to the TSC. They would say it to the board. They would say, well, we really need this thing, to all of the other sponsors of the board. And like they're not going to do that, right? Like you have to think of the board sort of as like a Mexican standoff, right? Like nobody can do anything that screws over everybody else or one of the other players, and that's one of the benefits of having the foundation and having the board.
Let's move on. As I was saying before, I wonder if we should maybe open an issue to discuss purely the people's thoughts on the benefits to io.js of doing this process, just to hash that out so that maybe we'll come to a clearer idea of that for people. Because a lot of people involved are very attached to io.js and see it as a step backwards, trying to shoehorn it back into the giant node process.
Right, and just for the record, like IBM has actually been awesome during this whole process and has really helped everything along. So, like I know that people like to use them as like a sort of like theoretical bad actor, but like in our experience so far, they've actually been great to work with. So I kind of feel really bad that we're using them as the example.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Okay, let's move on. So issue number 1226, it's pull request. The suggestion is to add a NaN working group. The proposal is to transfer NaN and also the node add-ons examples repos from my GitHub user to io.js and have them run by a new working group. I think the new name was, the current proposed name for the working group is different. It's what did I change it to? Add-on API working group.
Can we call the module anything but Nan?
That's up to the working group.
I agree. But
It's
yeah,
like
of
the
course.
most confusing name ever.
I'm glad you like it, Michael.
So there's still no movement from other collaborators other than Rod on the actual NAN's proposal on their side. I'm not sure if that matters at all.
I
So
responded recently.
that's sort of the way it works. So, and one of the notable things about this working group proposal is that there's no the requirement or the process around having hangout meetings was removed. Something specifically that everybody in that project feels that we've got a good working pattern on GitHub. We just want to continue that. So that's sort of reflective of what's going on with no comments there. But there is another thread, if you look through there, Jeremiah, that's got extensive discussion about moving to io.js. So it's definitely been +1 by everyone in NAN.
Cool, fair enough.
So what's the process with this? Do we just is it a vote thing, or do we just no one's commenting, so it's just like every other thing? We've added a new working group. Done.
I mean, I don't care. I think it would be good to vote, but I don't think anybody would have objections still.
Let's do a formal vote just to be sure. I mean, I personally am +1.
Okay, TC members.
Chris?
+1.
I'm all for it.
+1.
I'm also +1. Trevor? You are the
+1.
one. Okay, well, that's. I think all the TC members are in favor.
Okay, fine. I'll take this then and move it on. The next one is mine again, and I'm in trouble with minutes now. So this was a proposal to add Jeremiah as a authorized release person, like myself and Chris are. So that means technically, on the technical side, it means adding his PGP key to, or his key fingerprint to the README, so it can be cross-referenced against releases, and giving him SSH access to the dist user on the web server, and that then pretty much gives him everything he needs to create releases. Oh, actually, maybe. Oh no, I think he already has release access to Jenkins to actually make the releases. I think that's already there. So that's all that needs to be in place. And then I imagine that Jeremiah would then just be another one of me in there proposing releases and cutting them with more frequency. Anybody got any comments on that?
No, +1.
No, I think it's awesome that there's more people. That
More
can.
releases. Good.
Exactly.
+1 as well.
Okay, great. So that's done then. So the next one, Michael, this is governance raising the bar for changes in membership and governance policy. This was changes to the TC process, I think. Do you want to lead this one?
Yeah, so, I mean, it needs to be changed if we're going to merge it, because I miscounted. But the main reason that I wanted to bring it up was really to have a discussion about it and make sure that there were no big objections to moving in that direction, because as we work on the governance policy for the foundation, I want it to reflect at least what we know that we can agree on here. And one thing is that we did want to raise the bar for changing the governance model or for kicking someone out of the TC. And we wanted to raise it to 2/3, but it felt really wrong to have a 2/3 majority when the limit on one company is 1/3. So literally one company plus a person could block anything, and that didn't feel right. And that's why we wanted to bring it back down to 1/4, which is actually what we tried to start with a long time back, but we didn't have enough people. And so this wouldn't be an issue in like a reconciled project because we would have like more TC members. So really, I just want to make sure that nobody objected to it, and that we could merge it if we wanted to, but probably it'll just end up in the foundation document.
Can I request that we continue on as if there is no merge proposal and foundation stuff, because that is really a separate issue to everything else we do, and assuming that it happens is assuming that everybody wants it to happen, and that we will find a point where everybody is happy for it to happen and Joyent actually presses the button. So.
Well, okay. So a couple things. One is that yes, we shouldn't block anything, and we shouldn't stop anything to do until like some kind of reconciliation happens. But like there isn't a community of people working on the advisory board repo, and there isn't a community of people running a project under open governance over there. So if I would rather that we discuss certain like the bulk of changes that we want to make to governance in io.js as io.js to make sure that like us and our community are okay with it, rather than having some document that is actually different than anything that we've talked about in io.js and then sort of dumping it on the community and saying, look, it's take it or leave it. Like, do we join the foundation or not, right? So that's the reason that we do stuff like this. Like, this shouldn't block anything, and I wouldn't put this out there if this blocked anything. We shouldn't like stop doing releases or stop making any kinds of code changes or anything like that. But it does really benefit us to try and test out some of these ideas that we want to move to on the governance side in io.js.
So yeah, like I mean, this like all the changes you proposed, Michael, were like kind of obvious. We wanted it anyway, but I haven't plus one it because it means that me or Ben has to leave the TC.
Yeah.
So I mean, since
that's my bad. I just miscounted. I'm sorry.
So like, are you gonna like scratch that rule for now, and then we're gonna make the other changes, or what's the plan forward with this proposal?
No, I think that until we have more TC members, I wouldn't want to merge it. What I do want to know is if everybody is theoretically okay with it if we had more TC members. That was kind of the main purpose. And we can merge it later once we have more people. Or if by the time that before we have more people reconciled, great. But the main thing that I want to do is flush out any objections that people might have to raising the bar for some of the governance changes, and to make that public and to get the rest of the io.js community involved in talking about it, which they did. So that worked out really well. And my apologies for not. I totally thought that we were at 8 people voting, but we're not. So.
Yeah. What you could also do is, let's say, like the change for now is like the bar for throwing people out is going up to 2/3, I believe, right? And also for changing the governance model. So like that's a change that you can sort of do independently of of changing the company limit. Like I mean, even if you think it's ideal that the company limit company maximum goes down, then you could still do it. And the other thing what you could change is, for example, okay, the rule is no more than 1/4 of the TC may be from a single employer, but we're okay with it if we're always okay with it if it's just 2 people. That means that if the TC ever becomes super small, it doesn't mean that like a lot of people have to step out. And I think if the TC is really small, then it's probably more healthy to have slightly more people than to have even fewer people, but companies are not overrepresented. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, but you're thinking about the changes as being separate, and they're not, because what I don't want to have happen is have the bar for changing things be 2/3 and the bar for one company be 1/3, because then those line up, right? And that's what I didn't want to have happen. So that's why, So that's why I said like let's just wait on merging it. I don't think that for us the 2/3 bar is that big of a deal right now anyway. So we can hold off on it. And this isn't like a thing that we should really spend a huge amount of time talking about, other than to just make sure that everybody is okay with raising the limit at some point in the future.
All right.
Michael, the 2/3 majority vote seems like a good change. So if I were you, I would split it out into a separate pull request and pull request that. I think that's fairly uncontroversial, so that can probably go in quickly.
All right, I might do that. Just give me some time.
Okay, all good. Moving on, nominating me to the TC. So I think I'm fine with this. If you guys want to talk and discuss it and vote, whatever.
Yeah, well, seems like a sensible thing to me. So +1.
So I'm not maybe completely up to date. Like I think we had broad support, but you weren't sure if you wanted to, Rod. So has that changed?
Yeah, I just needed time to think about what, like, strategically, whether my value not being on the TC was greater than if I was on the TC, and it was mainly due to the fact that I hadn't had time to think through it. But yeah, at this stage, I think I can, like, it shouldn't change my role here. I don't think.
Who's going to be the independent facilitator now?
I can take it on again.
Is it a requirement that we have an independent facilitator?
It's not actually in the government.
It's not a
No,
requirement.
that's true, I guess.
We just need someone who's good at it.
It's probably a role, actually, we need to deal with, like the release role, where we need to identify people that are good at it and can be can take occasional responsibility for it, rather than a single individual.
In that sense, I'd be happy to chip in.
Maybe we should do like a round robin amongst a group of people that can do this, organize the meetings and take the minutes.
That's also good, I guess. Yeah. All right. So back to the topic. Adding Rod, +1 from me.
Chris?
+1 from me.
Fedor?
+1.
Let's see. Then there's
+1.
Trevor. Okay, well, I guess that's unanimous. Welcome aboard, Rod.
Welcome, Rod.
Cheers. Okay. So now that's it. But before we've got this, we wanted to open up to anything on IRC. Now I don't know if we haven't got many viewers, so I don't know if people are actually engaged. But we should make sure that IRC people, if they've got comments or questions, that they can add them now. It seems to be kind of dead at the moment. So anyway,
Right.
so
I was looking at the wrong channel, so sorry.
Let it be known, though, that we'll try and add this as a regular thing, and Ben's asking if anyone objects to me being on the TC. Great. So this is going to be a regular thing. So if people want to feed into this process and don't feel that adding things on GitHub is the way to go, then we'll try and engage more with the IRC channel.
Cool.
Brian's always engaged. That's excellent.
Well, since there's nothing going on, I mean, let's just have it for a while, and then, or do it for a minute after the meeting, and then see if people are interested. If it doesn't work after 3 TC meetings, we can stop doing it again. Cool.
Okay. So next meeting, that would put it on the 8th of April. Are there any concerns about that date? No. Okay. Let's do it. And maybe for that one, no, that's fine. No, let's just go ahead with that. So nothing else from anyone before we close up? No. This has been a really quick TC meeting, relatively. So thanks, everybody.
It's good that these are short. It means that there's not a lot of contentious stuff and people are just getting shit done.
Well, we didn't have any like hard technical things to discuss this time, which sometimes is good to do. But yeah, like it's good to be short. And I think we're getting better at rotating, like the stand up where everybody calls the next person's name. That actually speeds things up quite a bit. So anyway, thanks all. Bye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us, Jeremiah.